guys, welcome to Partners in Crime. I'm Linda.
And I'm Vicki.
And today we have a lot of updates on the Cult Mom case, so stay tuned. Please subscribe and click on the bell button to get notified whenever we upload a video. We're going to try to do this weekly. Hopefully we'll get 2 videos out a week, so that's our goal. And this is kind of off of Lori, but I was watching, I believe it was Linda at It's a Crime. We love Linda. And there were court documents that I want to read something about Melanie Pawlowski. And Brandon Wardrow's custody battle. This is in court documents. Melanie Gibb was apparently told by Melanie Pawlowski that 2 of her own kids were zombies.
Melanie Pawlowski's kids.
Correct.
Who is Lori's niece.
And she said that her ex-husband Brandon went from dark to zombie, and this is crazy. He was once in Hitler's tight group of friends when Hitler was alive. So obviously she believes he was reborn, had a different life. And then the detective that was in the court documents, Detective Pilar, also states in his affidavit that on October 16th, 2019, Melanie contacted him regarding her children, and that she did not contact him again after this date with respect to her children or request his assistance in locating her children. Funny thing is that 2 or 3 days after that, she went to Brandon's parents' house 2 times and then did get arrested. So another thing about her is Melanie and Alex went to Brandon's parents' house 2 times to get put in jail. So I apologize. I'm just trying to get this. And then also Detective Pilar also said that Melanie is also a person of interest in the investigation related to the attempted murder of Brandon. So she is a person of interest in the shooting at his car too. I don't know if anybody knows that at this point.
She gave an interview with Nate Eidam, and she was flanked by her attorneys.
Yeah. And
at one point, and I don't know what the question was, they turned the sound off.
Yeah.
So I would have loved to have known what they asked her. And, you know, they are obviously giving her advice when they turn that sound off. So she's not going to get away with too much either. She, you know, it all started with someone taking a shot at Brandon Boudreaux, and they were driving Charles Vallow's car. Now, Charles had already been deceased. So they were driving his car, and which ties into the storage shed.
Yeah, definitely.
That Lori rented, because she brought to the storage shed, and there is footage on this too.
Yep.
A tire and a back seat from an automobile. Now, to get to that back area of the car, you had to take the tire off and take the seat out so that he could stretch out to shoot. We're thinking, and they're thinking, that it was Alex was the shooter. He was the attempted to murder Brandon, and they put it back. They went back the next day, retrieved the tire and this car seat, and put it back into the Jeep. So
crazy stuff.
It really is.
Yeah. And then another thing, you think Ian might be out of this because he was trying to help the police and all that kind of stuff. I did find out on or about June 5th, Ian and Natalie Pawlowski appeared for a hearing on Natalie's petition for order of protection, which listed their minor children as protected parties. Following the hearing, the 7th Judicial District in Madison County Court judge found that reasonable grounds existed to enter a renewed protection order. Protection order in domestic violence, allowing Ian to only have supervised parenting time.
Natalie.
Parenting time, contact with his children. I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at my notes.
Right.
Since entry of this renewed protection order, Mr. Pawlowski has not had contact with his children. So.
And Natalie is Mr. Pawlowski's ex-wife.
Correct.
She was the one who was petitioning for the protection order for her children. So he isn't as innocent in this whole thing. I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
As he appears to be.
So I also, in doing research, Lori told Melanie Gibb that she was taking JJ to his grandparents. She said she had to tell Kay that she had cancer, so she would take JJ. And she had this whole elaborate story that she flew with JJ to Louisiana, I believe they live, and she actually said that they met at the airport and handed him off.
Right.
So, okay, I think Kay would have taken JJ. She didn't have to make up a story like that, but obviously she is into making up stories.
Oh, yeah.
So, what comes out of her mouth, you just don't know what is true and what isn't.
It's too bad she didn't do that. I mean, they would have gladly have taken their grandson back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Melanie Gibb is the friend of Lori and Chad. And she was also, in the beginning, pretty much caught up in this cult behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It changed for her when they asked her to lie and say that she had the kids. She also was a little upset. She felt deceived when she went to spend the weekend with Lori. And that was September 21st, I think. September 21st to the 23rd.
I'll get there. Yeah, I believe it was...
my notes. I don't have that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was actually the 19th.
Okay.
She went on the 19th with a friend of hers. I think they called him her boyfriend.
Yeah, David.
And they stayed the weekend. On 9/22. During this time, Alex was also visiting. She said JJ was acting up. So Alex took JJ out of the house. On 9/22, he returned with JJ, and they thought that he seemed to be sleeping on Alex's shoulder. And they thought that was like very endearing at the time.
Yes.
That he was laying there sleeping on his shoulder. But who knows really
You
what
don't
the story
know if he
is.
was drugged or if he was
Yeah.
even worse at that point. So
And then they left on 9/23. They wanted to leave and they wanted to say goodbye to JJ. But Lori said, "Oh, Alex took him out because he was acting up. He was climbing on the cabinets, acting like a zombie." She said.
Yep.
So that was the last time anybody saw JJ.
Yep. So.
Well, actually, they didn't see JJ on that day because she claimed Alex took him out already.
That's right. Yeah. When they were leaving, they wanted to see him, and she said he came back and picked him up. Yep. So I do have a list of new charges. So, here's a tidbit that we found out too. Tylee was actually 16 when she disappeared. everybody kept saying she was 17, but they believe she was killed before her 17th birthday, which would have been September 24th. So that was something that everyone thought she was 17, but she was only 16 at that point. And then Melanie Gibb also was told by Lori in early 2019 that Charles would be killed in a car crash with JJ.
Oh, I didn't know that
Yes.
included JJ.
By January 1st or 2nd, when that didn't happen, Chad told Lori Charles died and his spirit left, and then he became this Ned Schneider, whoever this person is.
I don't know who that is.
So that was his story, that Charles became this because he didn't die the way he was supposed to. And we did find out yesterday too that June 11th is when they were doing JJ's autopsy. He was still not removed from the plastic, so he was still well preserved. And apparently Brandon Boudreaux was the one who identified
him.
Yeah, identified him. They couldn't identify Tylee. They had to use dental records for that, but they do have some soft tissue that they are getting DNA from. So,
Yeah.
it's just.
Also, when they found JJ, he was not only wrapped up and taped in a dark trash bag, but over his head was a white bag. Now, it could be that he suffocated with that white bag
I just don't know.
over his head.
Yeah.
He could have been drugged first, and then they suffocated him with the white bag. But the white bag was still on his head when they found him.
Yeah.
And, you know, most of the reporters that I've been listening to say most likely he suffocated because whenever you're trying to breathe,
You would have pulled at
you're
the.
fighting,
Yeah.
you know, you're going to try to get rid of that.
So he was probably drugged like you said at that
Right,
point.
and then, you know, oxygen is depleted when your heart is slowed down from drugs, and, you know, then they did that to him.
Right.
And I think that's probably the case.
Okay.
As far as Tylee, we don't know.
Yeah. And yesterday when we did see Lori's hearing, somebody brought up, I was watching Court TV, and Ted Rollins brought up that she was in civilian clothes, which was strange. Why would they allow her to be in civilian clothes? So that leads me to wonder, because they were talking about bail, and her lawyer said something about that they will revisit that later.
By the way, Chad had civilian clothes on also at
Did
his
he?
hearing.
Okay.
He had a shirt and a tie. I mean, you can't see past that.
Well, you saw that. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
What happened with that?
His charges were amended
Mm-hmm.
to the same charges that Lori has.
Okay.
So it's a conspiracy charge.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that happened with Lori's hearing, the judge, I believe, asked if Lori's lawyer was representing any other defendant, and he said no. But then the prosecutor chimed up and said, oh, I believe that you were representing another party previously. So was it just a mistake, or
It comes down to a conflict in interest.
yes.
So he did represent Chad as well early on. And at some point that changed, and she hired...
He hired the other guy.
Yes,
Yeah, I
which
can't
I
remember his name.
I don't know how any lawyer can represent them.
Yeah, there's just so
I
much,
just don't know how they could do it.
so much information, and we're trying to do our best. Like Vicki said, we're not, this is new to us, so we apologize if we're fumbling a little bit, but as we go through these cases, we'll try to make them more concise. We did get a lot of information yesterday, though. I have like about 20 pages of notes here from just watching. So there is a lot to it. You know, Tammy, Chad said that he saw, what did it go down? Chad was working outside and then came in and told Tammy that he had a vision from her grandmother Cooper, and said she had to visit her family, her parents, in Springville, Utah. Earlier, Tammy said she did want to visit her family, but Chad was hesitant to go. And she never really did travel without Chad or the kids. So she decided to take the 4-hour drive the next day to visit her parents, which she did. She spent the night at her sister's, and around 9 a.m. she drove home the next day. He must be very good, a very good talker and very convincing for all of these people to actually
Aren't most
believe
cult
what he's
leaders?
saying. Yeah.
You know, they have this charisma, I guess is the word, and this ability to get people to follow them and to listen to their, I'm saying crazy again, to listen to their teachings. But you hear that about all these cult leaders that have large followings of people. Now, I don't know how many people he did have following him, but apparently...
I mean, a lot of people read his books, so, you know, he had that type of following as well, but the inner teachings, I don't know how many people were actually in there. Probably over 20, I would imagine. You know, his children, that's another thing, that they are really kept out of the news. I'm surprised that none of his children have spoken up about this because their mother died. Are they kept from the news? Like, it seems very strange that they wouldn't be hearing all of this.
I'm sure they are, but maybe they just want to believe that their father had no part of it. And that, you know, they're just sensationalizing the mother's death for...
I get it, but there are 2 kids buried in your backyard.
Yeah, I don't know how you could walk outside. But they didn't know that. The kids...
Well, they do now.
They do now.
Yeah.
They do now, yeah.
So...
I don't know.
It would be nice to hear from them, to hear their side of the story. I know we've heard Colby before they found the kids, and he was, you know, begging his mom, just
tell us
where they are.
Yeah.
I mean, I am not someone that knows anything about the Church of Latter-day Saints. I don't know their religion. I don't know what their philosophy is. So was some of this part of that? I know they said they were a splinter group. There was a lot of people, though, that fell for his
teachings?
Yeah, and his stories. Because obviously they were stories. I mean, to tell your wife, oh, your grandmother came to me in a vision and said to go, apparently his wife believed him. You know, that's just... The same day as she was pulling into her, 10-5, and then 10-9, when she was pulling into her driveway, that's when the man with the ski mask was shooting at her. They thought it was just a prank. She thought it was a paintball which misfired or wasn't loaded, and the police, she did call the police, but they thought it was a prank. So,
and then Brandon. Someone fired at him, and he recognized that there was a silencer on the weapon. So maybe she mistook that as a paintball.
Could have, yeah.
But it actually could have been the silencer.
And then when Lori and Chad got married, 10 days after Tammy died, there was no one there, no friends or family, just Lori. I was briefly watching, and I didn't take notes on this, but I briefly watched a video. I can't remember the woman's name, but Lori's friend from Hawaii. She was on a Dateline episode. She was talking to, who's the lady with with the blonde hair, the crime lady. She's very loud. She had her own show.
Nancy Grace.
Nancy Grace. She was talking to Nancy Grace. And apparently, when they lived in Hawaii, Tylee was sick all the time. And Nancy Grace was asking her, was Lori always there when she was sick?
Mm-hmm.
This is just speculation, but was she a Munchausen? By proxy, getting all this attention by people taking care of her daughter, and apparently they didn't have a great relationship. Her friends said that Tylee had a lot of challenges in her life. So who knows what type of mother. Everybody said Lori was wonderful. Well, anybody could be wonderful in front of everyone. Doesn't mean that behind the scenes they're the same. And unfortunately, the kids suffer because of that. Because if they go out of line in front of everyone else, they'll pay for it when they're alone.
Exactly.
Like I said, it was a brief snippet, and so I thought that was curious that
Lori,
she could have been that type of mother.
She could have been.
And I did hear Zav Girl on YouTube. She was saying that Melanie Pawlowski also had a statement, and I didn't write down any of that, but she's basically telling the same story, and this is such a tragedy, but she's still saying how people are making so much out of it, and there's lies, and how can you say that, Melanie? How can you say that? Mm-hmm. Your cousins were found dead in your aunt's new husband's backyard, and you're still acting like, people are mean and people are saying all these awful things. Well, of course they're going to say these awful things because these two children were killed. How can you still, just the way that the...
Well, Melanie was so part of that group. She was a follower.
Oh, it's just so frustrating.
And, now she has been arrested.
Melanie,
not for this.
Okay, before.
Yeah. So she's under the advice of attorneys, and they might be, counseling her on what she should say.
I would say just don't say anything if I was her lawyer. Like, just be quiet.
Yeah.
Nobody, I don't know if anybody wants to hear from her, but unless you're going to tell us what happened, we don't need to hear from you saying that people are making too much out of it and there are lies and all this kind of thing.
They're trying to tie her into it also.
Yeah.
They're trying to. So
right, well then just...
That's why the lawyers are so protective of her.
But the more you talk, Melanie, the more that's going to come out because you can't keep things straight at this point.
No, there's a lot of conflicts in what she's saying.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
She likes to talk.
Yeah, there was something, and I do have notes about that one of the investigators was saying she can't keep her facts straight.
I thought you were going to say she can't keep her mouth shut.
Well, mother's media interview, so they're talking about Melanie, throughout this litigation are filled with conflicting statements from one interview to the next. So there you go. She can't even keep it straight. So if I were you, just zip it unless you're going to tell us exactly what you know, because I do think you are a big part of this. Saying that you just thought Tylee, she was a free spirit and that she just was always with friends and everything. She was 16. How can you say that she's just out there with her friends? Like, her mom should be taking care of her, should know where she is, and they said you lived right next door. Yeah, I might not know what my neighbor does right next door to me if they're not my family member. If they are my family member, I probably know a lot more, and especially if I'm involved in this group with them. Mm-hmm. So,
she was still saying what a wonderful mother Lori is in her last interview, and that she never saw her do anything that is abusive or negative towards those kids.
Yeah.
So she's as brainwashed as the rest of them.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you again for your comments. We do appreciate getting them. Feel free, if there's anything that you can add, it would be really helpful for us.
For sure, yeah.
And if you have any interest in any other cases that are out there and you would like to recommend that we discuss those as well, please let us know. I was thinking of the Kyron Harmon case.
Okay.
That's the little boy, and it's been 10 years already,
Mm-hmm.
that disappeared from his elementary school.
Okay.
His stepmother had brought him in, and she said she left him in the school, and then he never came home. And they never found him.
Okay.
So it's interesting, and it's interesting how the stepmother ties into this. There's still a lot going on with that case. There's Facebook pages, there's groups that are, where's Kyron groups, and it's just another interesting one to follow.
Okay, so maybe we'll do a video next week on Kyron, is his name?
Kyron,
Kyron.
K-Y-R-O-N.
Okay, we'll do a video on him, and obviously if there's new breaking news that comes out, we'll definitely talk about that. Maybe we won't go so in depth because we did kind of go over almost everything unless something earth-shattering comes out before next week.
Right. Or if you have anything to add in the comments, we certainly could discuss those as well. If you have new information.
Sure. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And till next time, just let us know what you want to see and give us more information when you get it. So take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.